Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Hassan Saeed. I'm working at King Saud ibn Abdulaziz for health service as a teaching staff, and this is my second session to show you how to do waxing of full crown coverage. The first session we talked about the instruments. We're using the same instruments. We're using the same type of wax, but it comes in different form. This time, this type of wax, it comes in different form. So first of all, we have to check the occlusions first, because we have a model like this. Normally the model, you keep it in an articulator. This is the maxillary model and the mandibular model, and then we check the occlusion, we put them together. Like that. And we're going to wax one of this. You see the mandibular first, premolar, okay? The mandibular left premolar. So normally, when you take it, okay, you have this, the preparation of full coverage. You can see here. When I look at the project, that means all the surface has been cut. That means all the 5 surfaces have been cut. Facial, lingual, the facial, lingual, mesial, distal, and occlusal. So the objective of your project is that you have to get the outline form, okay? Build up the whole surfaces, okay? And then when you build up the whole surfaces, you put it back, and then you have to make sure that it comes, establish the contact between the 2 adjacent tooths, and finally you have to check when you put it, the top one, you have to check the occlusal as well, okay? So just before you start, okay, then you have here the finish line. We call it the finish line of your preparation. We just will start doing like that, right? We make a marker for the finish line. Normally we use a kind of a wax pencil. Okay, we just go around it just to mark your finish line. Normally we don't use leaded one, okay, just to wax red or blue pencils like this to mark your finish line. Because your wax, it doesn't have to exceed your finish line like that, okay? To make clear, now you can see here all the finish line had been marked. And then we establish the first layers, which is we're using a kind of wax as a liner. It's a molten wax here. Normally it is electrical one. And just before you start dip it, you have to make sure the facial, the facial from your lingual, and then you make a mark for the facials, because most of the time you are going to put your projects, and we call it this. Just make sure that you make line that this is your facial, and you start dip it in a molten wax like this. Just dip. just molten, is yellow. This is an inlay. You just dip it till the end. And you take it out. You just make your first layer like this, and you cover it till your margins, okay? Just below the cement enamel junction, and you have to clean. If it is more, we just area here, we just clean it like that. Make sure that all your instruments are clean, and you cover the hole like that, okay? Then you get your spatula number 7. You clean it. If you have been using different type of wax before, and you have your stop here. And we start adding the amount. Okay, we have this type, which is the red type of wax, okay? Just warm the instruments and dip it here a little bit. Take the amount of wax you want. Go back, as we said at the beginning, and we stop, support, and put the wax in the surface. A gentle blow. Like that, and then you start covering surface by surface. Carry the amount of wax you need, like this, and you can go around. Gentle blow, clean the instruments, warm. Amount of wax, just warm a little bit, and you go around. You cover the surface. A little bit you cover the closer surface as well. Gentle blow. Make sure that everything is okay. If you want to clean cervically, or just clean it like that. If you have any excess, just past your margins, you just clean it like that. And we start adding the wax. All the time just adding the wax. And then you can see that you have to keep the wax near to you, near to your projects while you add it. And this is the facial. Then most of the time I started with the facial, start with the lingual. You have to know. Warm the instruments, take the amount of wax, just dip it in the block, and then add. Clean. We just clean and add. Make sure that we said that you have to keep it warm, alright? We don't have to heat the instruments. Gentle blow, this is the most important. We don't have to use a compressed air, as I said before, because compressed air will dry so fast quickly and created a kind of internal stress in the wax, and this internal stress will not give you a good result at the end. It has an effect of the final result of your wax pattern. Okay, amount of wax, warm instruments, and carry on like this till you build up your outline form, the whole outline form. If you need the other end of spatula number 7, then you have to warm the instrument before you starting and applying the other one. Okay. All right. This is the facial. Make sure you don't touch. Just put it back. You stop here and just look at it how it looks like that. Okay. And this just we establish. Okay, we cover the whole things, but we did not establish all the anatomy of the tooth. When I look at this here, I have two contacts. I have to establish it. One nasal contact here, which is close to the canine, and this will comes at, and you can this will come just at the junction of the incisal in the middle third. Then I have another contact which is distal with the adjacent mandibular second premolar, and you find it at the junction of the incisal and occlusal of the occlusal and the middle third. You find it here. Then you have cervically, you have here two embragures, one mesial and one distal. We call them gingival embragures. Then I have another embragures which is lingually and facially and the occlusal. So at the end, when you establish that, and we can carry on. Okay. If I want to use the other end of spatula number 7, I make sure that the other end, which is the flat, the paper tail, is cold enough now, and then we can start with this end and just warm it a little bit, dip it in your block, take the amount of wax and add. And then add to the occlusal. Clean. Add to the occlusal third from mesial and distal, and then in the middle and the cervical third. And you can see that most of the time when I add, I just melt the previous layer of the wax and then I add a fresh one, so that means all the wax will be homogeneous. Okay, we don't want layering, because layering of the wax, that means it comes in the layer, and this will not give you a final good result. Clean. Add, clean, warm, add, and just carry on like that till you build up. And just you build up the whole tooth. You know, the characteristic feature of this mandibular first is a little bit wider on the facial and narrow on the lingual. and then we have in the middle, just we put it back and then we check. And every time when you add, you can see here, we're starting to have some details here, and we're starting to have a close contact just mesially, but still the distal. Then we have to add more in the distal here, and you can see here the cervical embrasure mesially. You can see it clear. But I have to add a little bit on the distal so you can establish the contact. Then we look at it from the lingual. All right, from the lingual you can see it's a little bit bulgy here. We have to reduce it later on, but we have to get the outline formed first before we start doing any carving. Just clean, warm, and just dip it in the wax block here, and then we start adding a little bit. Clean, warm, and dip. If I want to take a small amount, then I go for a spatula. I keep the spatula and then I use the PKT number 1, 2. If you want, just you have to clean it. Make sure it is clean, and then warm it and dip it. And a small amount you can carry. Take it back. We look at the contact again. You can see here, clearly we established the distal contact, but it is a wider embrasure. Then I have to add a little bit here in the middle. But if we look here, it's a good contact on the middle with the canine and a good embrasure size at the cervical sac. But distally, I have established the contact, but I have to add a little bit here on the middle sac because you can see here the cervical embrasure, it looks very wide. Then we add a small amount, then I go again, I'll go back for the PKT number 1 or 2, take the amount of wax, and I just add a little bit here on the middle sac. Gentle blow with your mouse, a gentle blow like this. Put it back again. Okay, still we have just to narrow a little bit on the cervical here as well, on the distal. Okay, here cervical embrasure here, we have to narrow it a little bit. We look at it from the lingual. The lingual, it looks okay, but again, we have to reduce the bulkiness of the lingual cusp here. All right. That's the most important. We establish outline form. We get the contact in brazures area, and then after that we go for the details of the occlusal. Just I'm reducing a little bit of the lingual cusp. As we said, most of the time while you are doing your carving, you have to carve in one direction. This is very important. We have just to give you a smooth surface, okay? Most of the time you just carve in one direction and make sure that there is no flaking, okay, and then you can curve it to a very thin margin. This is very important because this type of wax, you can carve it to a very thin margin without any flaking. Okay, this is one of the requirements of this wax. As we said, this type of inlay casting wax is a combination of natural, okay, and synthetic derivative wax, okay. And as we said before, the natural like paraffin and microcrystalline, and then carnauba wax and candelia wax, and each one of these wax, it has certain properties and improve. Some of them are tough, some of them improve the melting properties, some improve the brittleness, and so that's why you have a combination of wax. Make sure that the mark of your facial is still there and clean. And if you have any remnants in your hands, you have to clean it, okay? We don't want any remnants to stuck to the model here. Yes, is much better here, and then you can see here, it's starting to have the outline and everything here, and even lingual, then we have to reduce a little bit, okay? Then I have to check the occlusal before it started, okay, because I put the opposing model like this, and then we check the occlusion, right? We check the occlusion here, and then if there is any clearance, it will be okay. Then I will start doing my occlusal. But before you start doing the occlusal, you have to make sure that the lingual, you have to reduce it a little bit, clean the waxing. The carver, you have to clean it, but you don't have to warm it or you don't have to heat it. Just as we said, most of the time the carvers you use the carvers. You don't have to warm them or heat the carvers. You just start doing carving. While you are doing your carving, putting in consideration the anatomy of this tooth, okay, how it looks, that it looks a wider facially with a wider cusp, okay, and lingual, we have a smaller lingual cusp, and when I look at the height of the facial cusp is a little bit longer than the lingual cusp. Then when I look at the details, because this is the project, okay, after you finish, you get the outline, you have to look at the details, okay. The marginal ridge here, we have cusp ridge, facial cusp ridge, we have lingual cusp ridge, and then we have two triangular, we have two marginal ridge occlusally. Okay, we have two marginal ridge occlusally, one mesial and one distal. The mesial marginal ridge is a little bit directed to the lingual and lower than the distal marginal ridge, okay? And the other characteristic feature of these tooth that the basal marginal ridge toward the lingual surface, all right, it has a mesolingual groove, and this is a type trait of that tooth, okay, that the mesal marginal ridge is crossed by a groove. We call it mesolingual groove, okay, and the lingual cusp is a little bit lower in height than the facial. So all this the details that you learned in your anatomy lessons, and then you start to apply it while you are doing your carving, The hints, as I mentioned in the first video, most of the time when you're doing your carve, you carve in one direction, okay, so to avoid any scratches in the wax. If you carve facial-lingually, then you carve facial-lingually. If you carve mesodistally, then you carve mesodistally, and so on. Make sure that cervical surd is a little bit flatter. Okay, embrasures are okay. Height is okay. Again, we have to add the marginal ridge in both cusps. We look at the embrasures here, and then we look at the facial embrasures, and then I look at it from the lingual here. When you look at from the lingual, you look at the lingual embrasures, and I look at the relation of the cusp, okay, up to adjacent cusp, okay, and here we have to reduce a little bit here from the lingual of that one, because the tip cusp of the lingual should be together, okay, they should be in line, and the tip cusp of the facial, they should be in line, okay. This is very important while you are doing your carving like this, and this is what you took in your anatomy. When I look at this one on the occlusal, then I have to make it a little bit inclined toward the lingual, a little bit inclined toward the lingual. And the lingual cusp, yes, I have to reduce it a little bit because it's slightly bulging. And we clean. Put it back, all right, and then you can start building up your cusp. Clean the instruments, the PKT 1. And here is, we just have to add a little bit to add, just clean, warm, and dip in your wax block. And we started your cusp. We start building the cusp. We have cusp bridges. We have cusp bridge or cusp slope, one mesal and one distal. And we have a marginal ridge here. And this is just working on the, and here is the tip of the cusp here. Gentle blow, I can stop it. Yes, I like that, the gentle blow. And just warm and start adding. You add the marginal ridge. and then we start the smaller one, which is the lingual cusp. It has two cusp bridges as well, or two cusp slope. I have very small here is the lingual cusp here, the tip in the middle. Just put and a gentle blow here. You can see here the tip of the cusp of the lingual here, and then in mesial and distal we start building up the other cusp bridge. Gentle blow. Just take it out. We start just carve a little bit if we have any excess. You start carving, clean the instruments in between, and we said to start carving in one direction. Then you start just here on the lingual and the occlusal. You start using the other end of your PKT number 4. This you can work on the occlusal, so it can give you the details of the occlusal. We have two triangular fossa here, one mesial and one distal, and you can see this end, it can create the fossa very clearly. At the same time, while you are working on the fossa, it can create the marginal ridge as well, plus the transverse ridge, which is a characteristic feature of that tooth. It has a transverse ridge in the middle between the facial and lingual. Clean the instruments. We don't want any remnants of the wax here in between, and then you start carving. Cervical lingually here is a little bit flat, a little bit convex in the middle, and highly convex at the occlusal side. We just clean it. Check it. We can see here we're just starting establishing the occlusal a little bit, and the contact is okay. The marginal ridge is a little bit high distally, but outline here you can see it is a little bit high. You have to reduce it. and the contact area and the measle we have to establish it again. Okay, then we have all the time we have to put it back and make sure everything is okay. So we have to reduce now because we said that the marginal ridge distally is a little bit high, then we have to reduce it. Details, spatula, okay, we can use an instrument, the PKT number 3, okay, if you just warm a little bit, if you want to go inside to make a small details, just warm a little bit and you can go like that inside the occlusal surface of that tooth. So you can see here, in the fossa, in the groove, details of the triangular ridges, and this is very good when you use just a little bit warm, a little bit, and you go through in the occlusal surface. You can show the grooves, the anatomy of the grooves, and here we can see it here, the lingual. You can see the groove, which is the mesolingual groove. It can show here. Okay. Then we go into details and finish and polish. Stop. No one give? Okay. Can start now?
Yes, sir.
And we get the anatomy, all the anatomy, the convergence. You can see here at the occlusal, all margins are okay, converging at the occlusal third. You can see here the lingual embryones, they look okay. And you can see here, this is the mesolingual groove, which is clear in the mesal marginal ridge. Can start washing, okay, as well. As usual, if you hit just, we can wash it. With soap, just clean it with soap and just dry it a little bit, and then we can use the socks as we used it before. We just you put your finger like that, and then we start polish. Don't touch it most of the time, just to try to polish, and as we said, just in a circular motion. We start polish with a nylon socks, a softer one. Okay, we don't want a coarse one that will scratch the wax. And in round. Then we can just wash it again, and then we can wash it with water. نغسله just like that, and then a little bit of water. You can wash it with water, and then tissues. and then you can put it back. And this is how it looks here. This is the final result. You can see it here from, this is the occlusal, and you can see it here. This is the cusp, ridges of the buccal cusp, which is a little bit high. And then we can see here, this is the lingual cusp, which is a smaller one. And in lower level, you can see it lower level. This is the mesomarginal ridge and the mesolingual groove. You can see it here clear. And we can see here the distal marginal ridge. If we look at the contact, good contact, or we look at the bridges, the good embraces, this is from the lingual. Then when I look at it from the facial, you can see it here from the facial clear. We have a ridge in the middle, all right, and we have cusp slopes as well, okay, a distal and a mesial, and we have embrasures here, cervical embrasures, and we have a facial embrasure, one distal and one mesial here. And if we look at the profile, they go one, and then if I look at the cusp tip of both, this one and this one, they run. If you make a line, it will go in one line like this, and the lingual one as well, the tip of the lingual cusp of the adjacent with this one, it just run in line. And this is the final results of your day. Then we can check the occlusion. We have a posing, or just it comes like that. It comes in normal, and you can see here the mesial cusp slope, it goes with the distal cusp slope of the canine here, of this one. This is normally the normal occlusion, okay, when it comes in centric occlusion. This is the end result of your projects like that, highly polished with full details of the anatomy of that tooth, which is the mandibular left first premolar, okay, like this, and all the details of the anatomy you can see in this model. Thank you.